Today we're relaxing by the lake with Susan, a QHS member whose life journey is as refreshing and inspiring as a day spent by the water. But what currents guided her to where she is today? Let's take a peaceful stroll through her story and see what's been happening behind the scenes.
Hi, my name is Susan M., and this is my prequel. I was born in 1944, so I'm ahead of most of you there. I was born during World War II, and my father left the evening I was born, so I didn't see him for a couple of years. But I did have an older brother, 9 years older, who named me, and he played pretty much father and protector. I needed protection from my other brother, who was only 2 years older than I, and ADHD. My background. My family is primarily German. My great-grandfather came to the United States during the Prussian War, and he settled as an adult, he settled in Ohio and raised 33 children on a farm. So, yes, my grandfather was, let's see, when he was born, his father was 72, and there were 3 more that followed my grandfather. And he married another German lady. And so my father and his twin brother are pretty much full German. And on my mother's side, it's English and Irish. My grandfather was Irish. My grandfather was English. My grandmother was Irish, and she had the red hair and a temper to prove it. When my father married my mother, they moved to a suburb of Chicago, and all of my relatives were also in another suburb of Chicago. So I was raised with all of my cousins and grandparents and great-grandparents, and the only one that I did not know was my grandfather on my father's side. He passed away before I was born. I loved my childhood. On an emotional level, I was loved, I was cared for, I had freedom, but there were certain set rules, as you can imagine, in a German family. You either did what you were told or you didn't, and I didn't. I behaved, I was a good student, I came when I was called. I was a good kid, but I was always hurting myself as a child, and I started very young. I actually almost cut my thumb off carrying 2 milk bottles down a steps when I was a toddler. That was the first part. I broke my arm when I was a toddler. I think my brother was involved in that. And it's just been one thing after. I mean, when you jump off the roof of garages, you hurt yourself. And I was good at doing things such as that, along with my older brother, 2 years older. We didn't get into a lot of trouble, but we certainly were very active and just did about anything we wanted to do. Not that we weren't supervised, it's just that we had 5 acres to run on, and animals and fruit trees and all of that when I was young. And then we moved to another home, which I dearly loved, which wasn't everybody had an acre of lawn or an acre of property, and we played all over the neighborhood. There's probably, we could staff 2 baseball teams. The girls and boys played together, and we staffed baseball games and football games all over the neighborhood. So it was a great place to grow up. I grew up with music. My mother played both the piano and the organ. We had one of each. We roller skated in our basement. It was a big house. We were just very active. And then my father had a heart attack in 1950. And the doctors told him he wouldn't live 5 years if he didn't get out of there. So in 1957, we wound up going to Southern California. And then I went into culture shock because I was not used to those kinds of people. Not that I didn't have all kinds of people around me, but it was a different class of people. My childhood was absolutely safe. I could walk anywhere at any time and be perfectly safe until I moved to Southern California. But I was 14 then, and things changed. Memories of childhood. Basically, I was a musician, and I sang, was in choirs, madrigals, most of my teenage years. I was 14 when we moved to California. That was my safety valve, were all the musicians. And as long as we were doing things together, we didn't have any problem. And that went on into college. I met my wonderful husband in high school. We dated for 4.5 years before we married. And he was just amazing. He was amazing as a father. He was amazing as a husband. Good provider. He never neglected us, but he worked a lot. What else can I say? It was difficult in ways. My life was difficult as a teenager in culture shock because I didn't really get involved in school activities other than those things that surrounded music. It took me a while to adjust, shall I say, maybe 3 or 4 years to adjust. Was I shy or bold? I think in school a lot I was shy. Reserved is a better word. I don't think I was that shy. The thing that scared me the most in school was speech class. Getting up in front of people and giving speeches. And yet, when I got to college, I was working for a nonprofit while I was in college and raising children. I went back to college after we had children. When all of the kids were in school, I went back to college. And I was volunteering my time at the Youth Service Center. And they wanted me to do such things as teach parenting. They wanted me to present to the public about various things, what do you do about suicide, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I got past that. I didn't know that I could do that and did it well. So once I graduated, I did work for the Youth Service Center for several years. And I was on 5 different campuses, one every day of the week. And I was there every week for the kids and the parents. Raised children, our first child was adopted. I had a lot of challenges with getting pregnant, and then challenges with 8 miscarriages in 1 year. So after that, the doctors decided I needed a timeout, and we decided to adopt a child. And we moved back into Riverside after Steve graduated. And in March of 1971, they offered us a 2.5-month-old little boy. And he was a lot of fun and a lot of challenges. A little ADHD, a big kid, but very jolly, very well-tempered. And I got pregnant 2 weeks later. So we had 2 children in 1 year, a boy and a girl. They're 1 year and 9 days apart. And we said, okay, this is perfect. We get it over with all at one time. We had a boy and we had a girl, and we were just absolutely delighted. It turned out when they were young and babies up until they were 5 or 6 years old, they looked almost identical. They looked like they were twins. And nobody ever knew that one was adopted and one wasn't. Nobody cared. And then we were asked to take a foster child who was a distant cousin. And she was 10 going on 11. And it worked out beautifully. The little children were only like 2 and 3. And she was so good with them. So good I could leave her with them. And then she went to junior high school. And things changed, unfortunately. And she kept running away. But she doesn't run to a mile away, which is the norm. She was running to Texas, to Florida, etc. And then calling later and trying to get back home. So we eventually said, this is too hard on the other kids. We can't do this. Get yourself together, get your act together, and come back. And she never did. She never got it together. And they finally sent her home with her mother, which was not a good thing. And then we realized that while she was with us, we kept bringing her little brother over to our house for weekends, just to keep them together so they had family. And we said, we really like this kid. And we brought him back into our home on a permanent basis when he was 11 years old. He is an amazing man now. He said, I'm the one that's going to make it. And he did. He was 3 years behind in school. By the time he got out of high school, he was on grade with A's and B's. He went to college, put himself through Art Center Pasadena, cum laude, and does art for a living today. He's wonderful. And married a teacher and has a 22-year-old child now who is an adult doing Pilates, and she's just beautiful. So these are the things that happened in my life. We gathered children, and all of our children's friends all call me Mom, called Steve Dad, and they learned a lot from us, and we learned a lot from them, but they're still in our lives, and all of their children are in our lives. So that's pretty much what my life is like. I'm still a humanitarian. My husband passed away, but before he did, we moved to Northern California, where he had a job with AT&T. And if you're on AT&T, he wrote your voicemail system. We moved up into the mountains, and he drove down the hill to go to work, which was an 1.5 to 2 hour drive. But he was doing the same thing in Southern California, but he was sitting in traffic. He loved the drive here. And then he started working from home. The important things to me was all of the things that we did with the kids, all the places we went. We took them all over the United States. My daughter showed horses, and we hauled horses all over the United States. But everything stayed together. And when I finally moved up here with Steve, all of the kids were grown. The youngest was 22. They were all working. They were doing everything they needed to do. And we rented the house down there, but now we've sold the house down there. And we live in this wonderful wooded area in Northern California, in the mountains. And I'm still here. I have worked humanitarian projects for a very long time. I am an angelic Reiki. I am a Usui Reiki. I've studied nutrition, energy medicine since 1997. And I've learned a lot. I was able to overcome all of the sinus problems, all of my allergies. I no longer take any medication. And I want to help other people. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20-some years, is trying to help people, teach people how to change their lives, if they want to listen. And this was a natural fit for me. I was introduced to QHS through LWS. Some of you out there I also know are in LWS. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I absolutely love this company. I love the people. I have learned a lot. from the people who are here. Most of the problems I discovered were diet. I was a child eating everything under the sun because my parents did that. We ate all kinds of food, whole variety. Most of it were things that I should not have been eating. I did discover the blood type diet, and that really put me on a whole nother path. And I've been able to heal my gut. I've been gotten rid of the allergies. But the only thing I haven't gotten rid of are all of the damage to my body. And just before I joined QHS, I had an accident where I wound up going down face down and took out my wrists, my elbows, and both shoulders. I don't know how I drove home. And when I got home, I could not lift a fork to my face to feed myself. And that lasted for a week or so before I was beginning to recover. And having been interested in energy medicine, I did have some things in my little chest of drawers to help me get through that. But it never quite went away. I joined QHS in September, received my my V6, and that helped wonderfully. But I did the same thing again the following June. Only this time I didn't have the strength to keep my face off the ground. So I did the same thing again, plus my face. It was black and blue from here to here for about 2 weeks. Still using the V6. And then, of course, in last December, I was healing, but my elbow wasn't healing. And I finally went and had an x-ray, and they said I had broke it. It had moved out of position, but it was healed. And they could take it and do surgery, and they could fix it. And I said, no, thank you. And my chiropractor says I shouldn't be able to do this. But I do. And I have almost full motion with it. So I'm going to leave it alone and let my body fix it. And let the QArc fix it eventually. So I do have these things. The ankle that I tore all the ligaments in long time ago, 1983. And for a long time couldn't walk on it without a brace. And then I found energy medicine, and it healed up almost. Now I have no problems with it at all since I've been doing the energy from QHS. Q Vibes is amazing, absolutely amazing in every single way. Every time anything happens to me, and I now have said I am not hurting myself anymore, because I discovered through this process that my real problem is not that I'm clumsy or uncoordinated. I played soccer, I played tennis, I did a lot of things physical. It's a mental thing. It's a focus of I'm always looking out there and not at my feet. Where am I going? And it was always very quickly. I don't like to waste time. I was always on the run. And that was what was keeping me from getting pregnant initially. And they put me on Librium and Valium, and discovered 10 years later that Librium and Valium cause spontaneous abortion. Isn't that interesting? Oh no, a perfectly safe drug. So I've learned a lot about creating your own problems, about creating your own world. because what we think creates our world. And I have slowed down a great deal, and I watch where I put my feet these days. And I'm watching my thoughts. And I think that's primary for everything that I have done. I am much healthier than I was 15 years ago. Yes. And I'm going to be even healthier in the coming days. I am a humanitarian, and I do have humanitarian projects scheduled. But I bless this company, and I support this company, and I will be supporting this company even more. I just love everybody here. So thank you for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate it. And God bless all of you.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.